Hey, I'm Jim Search, and welcome to Understanding Upstate, the podcast dedicated to exploring what makes upstate New York such a unique place. Each week, my co-host Rob Adler and I dive into a new upstate topic to better understand what's up upstate, and we, this week, will set sail on the Maid of the Mist for Niagara Falls.
Woo!
Let's
Booyah,
go.
baby! I haven't gotten a booyah in there in a while. It feels good.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
Feels good. I'm excited to talk about Niagara Falls. I think this was my suggestion, and believe it or not,
Yeah.
I mean, last week we talked about the Niagara movement, and that as it directly related to the Niagara Falls, and that it took its name from the Niagara Falls, and this was a totally separate suggestion. It was like, oh, we should talk about the Niagara Falls one episode. Not even realizing that it was might be a good thing to follow up last week's episode with.
I thought that's why you picked it. Because
totally
we were staying in the Niagara. Well, serendipity is on our side this week.
I was just
Folks.
blankly staring at a map and was like, what the fuck should we talk about on an upcoming episode? I was like, oh, Niagara Falls. Hey, yeah, there we go. That's cool. Can't believe we haven't done it yet.
That'll do it.
Can't believe we haven't done it yet. Episode 97. This is a major, I was going to say geological feature. It's not so much a geological feature. It's a water feature.
And this is, I believe, isn't this one of the wonders of the world?
There's like, I think there's like, you got the pyramids and whatnot. There's like the ancient wonders of the world. At some point, someone released like a updated natural wonders of the world list, and like it depends on what list you're looking at, but it's definitely on one of them.
I was gonna say, man, I don't see how that motherfucker is not on there.
Yeah, like Niagara Falls is up
pretty
there.
badass.
It's up there with like Mount Everest. It's up there with the Nile, the Amazon, right? At least in my book. If we're ranking things on planet Earth, Niagara Falls. Right. Top of the list, baby. It's up there.
Have you been there? Have you been to Niagara Falls?
No, man.
Oh man. It's pretty awesome. I've
certainly seen pictures and videos of it. It's in tons of movies. Weirdly, by reference, the movie reference I can pull is it's featured heavily in Bruce Almighty, Jim Carrey, early 2000s film, I want to say.
He was a newscaster in Buffalo.
We'll cover it on an upcoming episode, I'm sure.
Sure. I went to Niagara University, and believe it or not, you could see the falls from not too far from where I was.
Yeah, it's like orientation week. Are you going on the Maid of the Mist, and
nah. So Niagara University is like in Lewiston, which is like right outside of Niagara Falls.
Okay.
But yeah, like Niagara Falls, the town. We could get into a whole lot, because that's a whole separate conversation, man. That is
keep an eye out for Understanding Upstate, the Niagara Falls quote the town episode. Right, we'll do a separate one. This is the falls. We'll do a town episode down the line.
Yeah, we could do that, and man, there's a lot to unpack there. But as far as the falls go, yeah, they're pretty badass. The bridge is pretty dope. I think I walked across it. We'll talk about the bridges
all right,
a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't have an upstate update this week.
Me neither, sadly. I'm wearing a Binghamton Triplets hat, but other than that,
I like it. You like to see it.
That's not really an update. That's like
That's a way of life, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. It's a lifestyle choice, brother.
Indeed.
I love it.
The one thing we do need to do is convince our Spiedie Freaks and Rattlesnake Pete's to make the lifestyle choice of subscribing to the podcast, right? Guys, subscribe. Helps us out a lot. Also, maybe rate and review the show. That also does wonders for us. If you take the time to give us 5 stars and write us a positive review. I can't stress enough. Positive. Not constructive. A positive review. You can throw
That's
in.
huge.
You can throw in a suggestion for a topic that you would like us to talk about on a future episode, and we'll do it. That's a promise and a threat, all in one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We ain't playing around here.
No. And we're not playing around today because we got a lot to talk about. Because again, the falls loom large in the world, not just in upstate New York. So should we get into these falls, Jim? Should we fall into today's episode?
I say we jump in the barrel and fall right over, baby.
All right, let's hear.
Let's fucking go. Right. Niagara Falls is a group of 3 waterfalls at the southern end of Niagara Gorge, spanning the border between the province of Ontario in Canada and the state of New York in the United States. The largest of the 3 is Horseshoe Falls, which straddles the international border of the 2 countries. It is also known as the Canadian Falls, depending on what country you ask. The smaller American Falls and Bridal Veil Falls lie within the United States. Bridal Veil Falls is separated from the Horseshoe Falls by Goat Island and from American Falls by Luna Island, with both islands situated in New York. Formed by the Niagara River, which drains Lake Erie into Lake Ontario, the combined falls have the highest flow rate of any natural waterfall in North America, and that has a vertical drop of more than 164 feet.
That's a lot of water.
During peak, that's a fucking drop, man.
Yep.
During peak daytime tourist hours, more than 5.9 million cubic feet of water goes over the crest of the falls every minute. Fuck. Horseshoe Falls is the most powerful waterfall in North America as measured by flow rate. Niagara Falls is famed for its beauty and is a valuable source of hydroelectric power. Balancing recreational, commercial, and industrial uses has been a challenge for the stewards of the falls ever since the 19th century. Niagara Falls is 17 miles northwest of Buffalo, New York, and 43 miles southeast of Toronto, between the twin cities of Niagara Falls, Ontario, and Niagara Falls, New York. As we talked earlier, Niagara Falls was formed when glaciers receded at the end of the Wisconsin glaciation, the last ice age, and water from the newly formed Great Lakes carved a path and through the Niagara escarpment en route to the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
And so, let's talk about the characteristics. Rob, what makes Niagara Falls Niagara Falls?
Let's get into it. I'm first doing some quick math because I wanted to figure out how many Olympic pools of water go over the crest of the falls every minute, and I've got some figures here.
Sure.
I just need to plug them in. Let's do... We're going to round up to 6 million, Jim. 6 million.
6 million pools?
6 million cubic feet of water, right? That's what we're working with every second over the crest. An Olympic pool is 88,000. So let's just round up to 90,000, just for simplicity here. That is 66 Olympic pools worth of water every second. Going over. Just think of 66 pools going over the edge every second. That's fucking crazy. That's crazy. That's a lot of water.
That's a lot of water.
It's a whole lot of water. And a very important fact I definitely needed to spend time uncovering.
Yes, you did.
But importantly, it is a characteristic of the falls. So let's learn some more characteristics. It served as a segue. It was worth it. All right. So the larger and taller Horseshoe Falls is about 187 feet high, while the American Falls varies between 69 and 98 feet and drop because of giant boulders at its base. We're going to talk about those boulders in a little bit later. Horseshoe Falls is about 2,592 feet wide, while the American Falls is only 1,050 feet. The distance between the American extremity of Niagara Falls and the Canadian extremity is 3,409 feet. The peak flow over Horseshoe Falls was recorded at 225,000 cubic feet of water. The average annual flow is 85,000 cubic feet. Since the flow is a direct function of the Lake Erie water elevation, it typically peaks in late spring or early November. Interesting. During the summer months, at least 99,000 cubic feet of water traverse the falls, some 90% of which goes over Horseshoe Falls, while the balance is diverted into hydroelectric facilities and then onto American Falls and Bridal Veil Falls. This is accomplished by employing a weir, the International Control Dam, with movable gates upstream from Horseshoe Falls. Jim, where did they get the name? Where did they get the name Niagara Falls?
What's in a name, right? Well, I'm going to tell you what's in a name. Theories differ as to the origin of the name of the falls. The Native American word Ongaira means thundering water. The New York Times used this in 1925. According to Iroquoian scholar Bruce Trigger, Niagara is derived from the name given to a branch of the local native neutral confederacy who are described as the Niagararian people on several late 17th century French maps of the area. According to George R. Stewart, it comes from the name of two Iroquois towns called Onigara. I'm butchering the fuck out of these names.
But hey, better you than me.
Sure. Point of land cut in two. In 1847, an Iroquois interpreter stated that the name came from there's so many vowels, Joanakana, meaning noisy point or portage. The Mohawks, the name refers to the neck, pronounced Oneira, the portage of neck of land between Lakes Erie and Ontario, Oneira. The modern Seneca name is Joshgongo, meaning the cliffs are standing. So many names with so many umblas over vowels. Well, there's a history here, Rob. There's a history of this here.
Absolutely.
This here falls. And let's talk about it. Let's go.
Let's crack open the history books. So many figures have been suggested as the first to circulate a European eyewitness description of Niagara Falls. The Frenchman Samuel de Champlain, who Lake Champlain is named after, visited the area as early as 1604 during his exploration of what is now Canada, and members of his party reported to him the spectacular waterfalls, which he described in his journals. The first description of the falls is credited to Belgian missionary Father Louis Hennepin in 1677, after traveling with the explorer René Robert Cavelier, Sieur de la Salle, thus bringing the falls to the attention of Europeans. French Jesuit missionary Paul Ragueneau. I got my own weird names pronounced here.
Better you than me. Better you than me.
Noted. Likely visited the falls some 35 years before Hennepin's visit while working among the Huron First Nation in Canada. Jean de Brébeuf also may have visited the falls while spending time with the neutral nation. The Finnish-Swedish nationalist Per Kalm explored the area in the early 18th century and is credited with the first scientific description of the falls. What? I wonder what makes it a science, like, I guess, geology and whatnot. Nature has scientific terminology, but a weird accolade. I had the first scientific description of the waterfall. All right, Per. In 1762, Captain Thomas Davies, a British Army officer and artist, surveyed the area and painted the watercolor An East View of the Great Cataract of Niagara, the first eyewitness painting of the falls. During the 19th century, tourism became popular, and by the mid-century, it was the area's main industry. Theodosia Burr Alston, daughter of Vice President Aaron Burr and the guy that shot Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
And her husband, Joseph Alston, were the first recorded couple to honeymoon there in 1801, it being a very popular honeymoon destination. I believe my wife's grandparents honeymooned in Niagara. Or at Niagara Falls, rather. Napoleon Bonaparte's brother, Jeremy, visited with his bride in the early 19th century. In 1825, British explorer John Franklin visited the falls while passing through New York en route to Cumberland House as part of his second Arctic expedition, calling them, quote, so justly celebrated as the first in the world for grandeur. All right, end quote.
There you go.
Hell yeah. In 1843, Frederick Douglass joined the American Anti-Slavery Society's 100 Conventions tour throughout New York and the Midwest. Sometime on this tour, Douglass visited Niagara Falls and wrote a brief account of the experience. Quote, when I came into its awful presence, the power of description failed me, and irresistible power closed my lips. Being on the Canadian border, Niagara Falls was one of the routes of the Underground Railroad. The falls were also a popular tourist attraction for Southern slave owners who would bring their enslaved workers on the trip. Many a time, the trusted body servant or slave girl would leave their master or mistress in discharge of some errand and never come back. All right, you're
great.
I mean, you're real close to the border. It's worth a
Sure.
shot if you have the chance. Jesus. This sometimes led to conflict. Yeah, I'd imagine. Early town father Peter Porter assisted slave catchers in finding runaway slaves. Boo! Even leading, in this case, to runaway Solomon Mosby to a riot in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Canada. Much of this history is memorialized in the Niagara Falls Underground Railroad Heritage Center. After the American Civil War, the New York Central Railroad publicized Niagara Falls as a focus of pleasure and honeymoon visits. After World War II, the auto industry, along with local tourism boards, began to promote Niagara honeymoons. Interesting. In about 1840, the English industrial chemist Hugh Lee Pattinson traveled to Canada, stopping at Niagara Falls long enough to make the earliest known photograph of the falls, a daguerreotype in the collection of Newcastle University. It was once believed that the small figure standing silhouetted with a top hat was added by an engraver working from imagination, as well as the daguerreotype as his source. But the figure is clearly present in the photograph because of the very long exposure required of 10 minutes or more. The figure is assumed by Canada's Niagara Parks Agency to be Pattinson. On August 6th, 1918, an iron scow became stuck on the rocks above the falls. Scow being a type of ship, right? The two men on the scow were rescued, but the vessel remained trapped on the rocks in the river and is still visible there in a deteriorated state. Wow! Although its position shifted by 160 feet during a storm on October 31st, 2019. Daredevil William Red Hill Sr. was particularly praised for his role in the rescue. Okay. All right. I wonder. We're going to talk about some Daredevil attempts later, but I wonder if we'll talk about William Red later. After the First World War, tourism boomed as automobiles made getting to the falls much easier. The story of Niagara Falls, the 20th century, is largely that of efforts to harness the energy of the falls for hydroelectric power and to control the development on both sides that threatens the area's natural beauty. Before the late 20th century, the northeastern end of Horseshoe Falls was in the United States, flowing around the Terrapin Rocks, which were once connected to Goat Island by a series of bridges. In 1955, the area between the rocks and Goat Island was filled in, creating Terrapin Point. In the early 1980s, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers filled in more land and built diversion dams and retaining walls to force the water away from Terrapin Point. Altogether, 400 feet of Horseshoe Falls were eliminated, including 100 feet on the Canadian side. According to author Ginger Strand, the Horseshoe Falls is now entirely in Canada. Others say most of Horseshoe Falls is in Canada. I keep reading like 90% of it is in Canada is what I've seen. The only recorded freeze up of the river and falls was caused by an ice jam on March 29th, 1848. No water, or at least a trickle, fell for more than as much as 40 hours. Water wheel stops and mills and factories shut down. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a lot of ice, man. That is a lot of ice. Mills and factories shut down due to a lack of power. In 1912, American Falls were completely frozen, but the other two falls kept flowing. Although the falls commonly ice up most winters, the river and the falls do not freeze completely. The years 1885, 1902, 06, 11, 32, 36, 2014, and 2017, and 2019 are noted for partial freezing of the falls. A so-called ice bridge was common in certain years at the base of the falls and used by people who wanted to cross the river before bridges had been built. During some winters, the ice sheet was as thick as 40 to 100 feet, but that thickness has not occurred since 1954. The ice bridge of 1841 was said to be at least 100 feet thick, and on February 4th, 1912, the ice bridge, which had formed on January 15th, began breaking up while people were still on it. Yikes. No. Many people escaped, but 3 died during the event, later named the Ice Bridge Tragedy. Yowzers.
You will not ever find me ever going on that, ever.
Like, yeah, I've been on many a frozen lake, and probably I don't know if I've ever really been on a frozen river, dude. That seems too high risk. I've probably, toddled over a frozen stream, but, if you got the falls downriver, fuck that, dude. No. Nope. That's too much nature. That's too much. Absolutely not.
Nah, I'm trying to live.
Well, Jim,
I'm trying to live, dog.
Lucky for you, they've built some bridges over the Niagara River. Should we talk about these beautiful bridges?
Let's talk about an easier way to get across, right? Like, this
a
is
less slippery one, at the very least.
You're going to find yourself in a better position, I think, to get across using one of these bridges. A number of bridges have spanned the Niagara River in the general vicinity of the falls. The first, not far from the whirlpool, was the suspension bridge above the gorge. It opened for use by the public in July 1848 and remained in use until 1855. A second bridge in the Upper Falls area was commissioned with 2 levels or decks, one for use by the Great Western Railway. This Niagara Falls suspension bridge opened in 1855.
One quick thing.
Yes.
We very quickly referenced a whirlpool, which I didn't know was a thing. I don't think we talk about it later, so I just pulled in some quick facts. There is a whirlpool called the Niagara Whirlpool, and it is 125 feet deep. It's this crazy big-ass whirlpool that's just sitting there downstream. And it's located along the border, it looks like. It's I'm looking at a picture of it now, and it's just a big ass whirlpool. I don't think you want to go in that thing, man. It's
nah.
Yeesh.
I will stay on land or stay on bridge. That's kind of where I'm at with that. This Niagara Falls suspension bridge opened in 1855. It was used by conductors on the Underground Railroad to escort runaway slaves to Canada. In 1882, the Grand Trunk Railway took over control of the second deck after it absorbed the Great Western Company. Significant structural improvements were made in the late 1870s, and then in 1886, this bridge remained in use until 1897. Now, because of the volume of traffic, the decision was made to construct a new arch bridge nearby, under and around the existing bridge. After it opened in September 1897, a decision was made to remove and scrap the railway suspension bridge. I don't know how you get rid of a bridge, but other than blow it up. This new bridge was initially known as the Niagara Railway Arch, or lower steel arch bridge, it had 2 decks. The lower one used for carriages and uppers for the trains. In 1937, it was renamed the Whirlpool Rapids Bridge and remains in use today.
Well, that's an old bridge.
That's an old-ass bridge. All of the structures built up to that time were referred to as the Lower Niagara Bridges and were some distance from the falls. The first bridge is the so-called Upper Niagara area, closer to the falls, was a 2-level suspension structure that opened in January 1869. It was destroyed during a severe storm in January 1889. Nature said, enough of that. The replacement was built quickly and reopened in 1889. I don't know about building a bridge quickly. You can take your time. In order to handle heavy traffic, a second bridge was commissioned slightly closer to the American Falls. This one was a steel bridge and opened to traffic in June 1897. It was known as the Upper Steel Arch Bridge, but was often called the Honeymoon Bridge. The single level included a track for trolleys and a space for carriages and pedestrians. The design led to the bridge being very close to the surface of the river, no thanks, and in January 1938, an ice jam twisted the steel frame of the bridge, which later collapsed on January 27th, 1938.
Oh my.
Again, folks, stop fucking with nature. Another Lower Niagara Bridge had been commissioned in 1883 by Cornelius Vanderbilt, great name, for use by railways at the location approximately 200 feet south of the railway suspension bridge. This was of an entirely different design. It was a cantilever bridge to provide greater strength. The Niagara Cantilever Bridge had 2 cantilevers, which were joined by steel sections. It opened officially in December 1883, and improvements were made over the years for a stronger structure. As rail traffic was increasing, the Michigan Central Railroad Company decided to build a new bridge in 1923 to be located between the Lower Steel Arch Bridge and the Cantilever Bridge. The Michigan Central Railway Bridge opened in February 1925 and remained in use until the early 21st century. The Cantilever Bridge was removed and scrapped after a new rail bridge opened. Nonetheless, it was inducted into the North American Railway Hall of Fame in 2006.
Take me there.
I didn't know that existed. There was a lengthy dispute as to which agency should build a replacement for the Niagara Railway Arch or the lower steel arch in the Upper Niagara area. When that was resolved, construction of a steel bridge commenced in February 1940, named the Rainbow Bridge. I've gone across that. And featured 2 lanes of traffic separated by a barrier. It opened in 1941 and remains in use today. Now, Rob, we got some articles here.
So, as I was digging into some old newspaper articles about the falls, I came across something pretty interesting and pretty wild. And I found a really good summary of it, actually, at history.com, which I think seems to be the History Channel's website.
Right.
But there was basically a movement that started, I want to say it was in like 1965, when someone, a journalist from the region, claimed that the falls were dying, and it led to some pretty crazy things. So let's get into the death of Niagara Falls and its proposed redesign, because it's pretty wild. So again, this is from history.com, and let's jump in. Niagara Falls is as much engineered as it is natural, says Daniel McFarlane, an environmental historian and author of Fixing Niagara Falls. Ever since hydroelectric power plants began harnessing the tremendous power of the falls in the late 19th century, there's been a constant tension between energy production and preserving the falls' natural splendor. Too much water going to the hydroelectric stations would give a negative impact on the aesthetic appeal of the falls. There would be thin flows and exposed rock instead of a solid curtain, explains McFarland. The 1950 Niagara River Diversion Treaty, signed by the U.S. and Canada, and currently still in place, aimed to address this balance. Half of the Niagara River's 200,000 cubic feet per second flow had to plunge over the brink during the peak tourist window, being April 1st to September 15th, between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. Outside of that time, that number dwindled to a quarter, with the remaining rush of water diverted through the underwater tunnels to hydroelectric turbines. That's crazy. So they were just they're kind of turning the spigot on and off on the falls so that night they could push more water to the fucking hydroelectric plants. Let's see. The treaty also put in place a number of tweaks and tucks for the largest of the three cataracts, Horseshoe Falls. Engineers excavated and deepened the flanks of the waterfall and reduced its lip length by several hundred feet to give the impression of more water volume flowing over an unbroken crest line, explains McFarland. So people
so
are
like a nip, like a nip tuck.
Yep. Exactly. I would say plastic surgery, but it's water surgery. Anyway, water diversions for hydropower are enormous, but their effect on the scenery is limited by massive engineering projects that keep everything looking the same, writes Ginger Strand in Inviting Niagara, Beauty, Power, and Lies. The end results in an environment that leads more any conflict between landscape enjoyment and resource expenditure. You see, it cheerfully declares, we can have our lake and use it too. But considering 90%...
Well played.
Good. It's like a B-plus pun. It's okay. But considering 90% of the spectacular Horseshoe Falls lie in Canada, which had already been drawing more tourists, Americans got jealous. Go figure. Americans?
No.
Canada was perceived as benefiting more from the improvements. Citizens of Niagara Falls, New York wanted American Falls to get its own makeover too. And I'm going to cut over to a New York Times article really quickly here that kind of speaks to some of this, as it happened. And I think this is from 1973. This is from September 9th, 1973. Should Niagara Falls look like this is the headline, and included is a picture of the Niagara Falls with steps cut into the rocks on the American Falls, like literal giant steps. So it looks fake as shit, basically. And I'll read a little bit from this. Niagara Falls, New York. Believe it or not, there is a drive underway to renovate Niagara Falls. 200,000 ballots are being circulated on both the American and Canadian sides of the falls by an organization set up by the official U.S.-Canadian Border Agency, and at this moment, townspeople and visitors are using them to vote for whichever of several redecoration plans they happen to fancy. It is the proponents of these so-called improvements. If the proponents of these so-called improvements get their way, many of the great rocks that have tumbled to the foot of the American Falls, as the cataract on the American side of the border is called, they will be removed, and unsightly control gates will be installed in the channel leading to the crest to increase the flow of water. Another scheme, a model of which is pictured above, would replace the rockfall at the base with a series of steps. This particular arrangement is grandiosely referred to by its adherents as the Temple of Osiris. In one way or another, the renovators believe they can, quote, upgrade one of the world's great natural spectacles by changing its physical appearance. And the article goes on to talk about this guy, Cliff Spieler, who was a journalist for the Niagara Falls Gazette. And he goes on to say he walked into his publisher's office with what he thought was a splendid idea for a series of featured articles on the imminent death of the American Falls in 1931 and 1954, because there was basically the rock face underneath the falls had basically crumbled, and there had been rock falls that had happened, and because of that, there's a shit ton of rock that fell, and it shortened the height of the falls, right? But it was the natural progression of the falls. So, like, it's nature, right?
Right.
And this guy wanted to get all of the boulders and rocks that had fallen out of there, and then either, like, they would fuck around in a couple different ways, but again, like, carving steps into the rock face was one of the proposed ideas. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because it kind of talks about basically this guy, ran this story in the newspaper, collaborated with other newspapers, politicians, and it really like picked up steam. Again, I think the first article was published in 1965, and this is coming out. This article we're reading now is in 1973. So just kind of picking up a little bit more on the current state of affairs as it was in 73. Not surprisingly, the politicians and the editorial writers were enthusiastically joined by representatives of the local industries, which enjoy the profits resulting from some 10 million tourists who flock to this area every year, and by sportsmen for the power. By spokesmen, for the power of the hydroelectric companies lined up along the Niagara's banks, which tap the river's immense energy. As a result, the Gazette's articles generated a vigorous and effective campaign to, quote, save the American Falls. The campaign became successful far beyond Spieler's dreams. He has since become director of the public relations for the New York State Power Authority. For some reason, though, no one asked the obvious question. Save them from what? After all, erosion.
Right.
The presumed culprit.
I feel like that question is why.
Right. And no, this is like the first
this?
person asking it 8 years later. After all, erosion, the presumed culprit had already, over a period of thousands of years, backed the falls 7 miles from the original site downriver, which is, I thought it was an interesting, the erosion is occurring just because there's 66 Olympic pools going over the edge every second. So the falls have literally moved back quite a distance over the thousands of years, which is kind of I think it's cool to think about. Anyway, no one pointed out that to stop this retreat, it would be necessary to halt the geological process of the falls, and no one questioned, not for some time at any rate, the central assumption, which was that nature should be manipulated by man. And again, it kind of goes into the follies of this idea. There's a lot of pictures. They created a massive scale model to test out these different aesthetic changes that the falls in this model come up to shoulder height on people, the huge model to workshop, what these aesthetic changes would look like. Just to summarize, I'm going to jump kind of back in now to the history.com history channel kind of description of it. So again, this campaign was a huge success. There was a public hearing in 1966. The Niagara Falls mayor, E. Dent Lackey, declared, if we are to determine what is beautiful or what is not beautiful by a majority vote, the majority of the people overwhelmingly say that the rockfall does mar the beauty of the falls, and therefore it is a violation of the law to continue to leave it. Those rocks are illegal, Jim. What the fuck are they?
Yeah.
What the fuck are they doing? The International Joint Commission, the Binational Border Agency, created a board to study the issue. A plan was set in motion for one of the most remarkable human efforts to conquer nature, and that led them to turning off the falls, Jim. They de-watered the falls, and there's some pretty crazy pictures. Starting in June 1969, Albert Elia Construction Company, under the direction of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, dumped more than 28,000 tons of rocks to create a 600-foot wide cofferdam. to divert water flow of the Niagara River from American Falls towards Horseshoe Falls. The once mighty American Falls was soon reduced to a mere drip. And it just looks like a cliff when you look at it in pictures. It's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
And also pretty sad. They drilled into the rock to extract core samples, ran colored dye into cracks to trace water flow, and installed sensors to measure rock stress levels and movement. What they found was that the rock talus was likely holding up the waterfall. So the rocks that had fallen were holding it up in place. So if they took the talus away, more rocks would fall. Let's see. In 1975, the International Joint Commission published its final report taking into account surveys sent to the public, the hefty price tag to remove the talus, and that the talus was likely propping up the face of the American Falls itself. The report's final decision, no talus would be removed. But it wasn't all for naught. While the falls were dewatered, the Army Corps engineers seized the opportunity to remove rock debris and stabilize the structure. So that's a good outcome. They used cement and bolts and tendons to help hold things together, essentially stapling some parts of the rock to keep it in place. It seems to have worked. No major rocks have fallen since. So a 10-year epic journey to, like, led in them turning off the falls for several months, and pretty wild. All just from one reporter's, like, batshit idea. He's like, this would be a good headline. 10 years later, they're turning the water off.
This is people with a lot of time and money, if I'm going to be quite frank.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some other people with maybe too much time on their hands, because we're going to talk about some people that have dared to go over the falls themselves and leap over them. Shall we, Jim?
Let's talk about it. So, the first recorded publicity stunt using the falls was the wreck of the schooner Michigan in 1827. Local hotel owners acquired a former Lake Erie freighter, loaded it with animals and effigies of people, towed it to a spot above the falls, and let it plunge over the brink.
What the fuck? Like real fucking animals? Fuck.
I don't like this.
This, dude. Holy shit.
An admission of 50 cents was charged. No thanks. In 1829, Sam Patch, who called himself the Yankee Leapster, jumped from a high tower into the gorge below the falls and survived. This began a long tradition of daredevils trying to go over the falls. Englishman Captain Matthew Webb, the first man to swim the English Channel, drowned in 1883 trying to swim the rapids downriver from the falls.
Wow.
You keep fucking around, you will find out. On October 24th, 1901, 63-year-old Michigan schoolteacher Annie Edson Taylor became the first person to go over the falls in a barrel as a publicity stunt. She survived, bleeding, but otherwise unharmed. Soon after exiting the barrel, she said, "No one ought to ever do that again." I could have told you that, and I didn't do it at all.
I hope she at least put, like, a pillow in the barrel or something. Like, Jesus. A barrel is a famously hard thing. Like, just rattling around in that
famously.
shit.
Days before Taylor's attempt, her domestic cat was sent over the falls in the barrel to test its strength. The cat survived the plunge unharmed and would later posed with Taylor in photographs. Take the cat away from her.
Yeah, dude.
Since Taylor's historic ride, over a dozen people have intentionally gone over the falls or in a device despite her advice. Some have survived unharmed, but others have drowned or been severely injured. Survivors face charges and stiff fines, as it is now illegal on both sides of the border to attempt to go over the falls. Charles Stevens, a 58-year-old barber from Bristol, England, went over the falls in a wooden barrel in 1920 and was the first person to die of this endeavor of its type.
Wow.
Bobby Leach went over Horseshoe Falls in a crude steel barrel in 1911 and needed rescuing by William Red Hill Sr.
Oh, there he is.
There's
That's the
the
guy we
guy
were talking about earlier. All right.
Uh-huh.
Daredevil.
Hill again came to the rescue of Leach following his failed attempt to swim the Niagara Gorge in 1920. Start charging him money. In 1928, Smiling Jean Lussier tried an evidently different concept, going over the falls in a large rubber ball. He was successful and survived the ordeal.
Rubber, famously soft. There you go. Perfect.
Sure. In the Miracle at Niagara on July 9th, 1960, Roger Woodward, a 7-year-old American boy, was swept over Horseshoe Falls after the boat in which he was cruising lost power. 2 tourists pulled his 17-year-old sister, Deanne, from the river only 20 feet from the lip of Horseshoe Falls at Goat Island. Minutes later, Woodward was plucked from the roiling plunge beneath Horseshoe Falls after grabbing a life ring thrown to him by the crew of the Maid of the Mist boat. The child's uncle, Jim Honeycutt, who had been steering the boat, was swept over the edge to his death. On July 2nd, 1984, Canadian Carol Susek from Hamilton, Ontario, plunged over Horseshoe Falls in a barrel with only minor injuries. Susek was fined $500 for performing the stunt without a license. In 1985, he was fatally injured while attempting to recreate the Niagara drop at the Houston Astrodome. His aim was to climb into a barrel hoisted to the rafters of the Astrodome and to drop 180 feet into a water tank on the floor. After his barrel was released prematurely, it hit the side of the tank, and he died the next day of injury.
That's the dumbest way to die I've ever heard. It's not even going over the falls. It's just dropping you from the roof of a sports complex. Oh, no.
Oh. It's going to get deeper than that. In 1985, Steve Trotter, an aspiring stuntman from Rhode Island, became the youngest person ever, age 22, and the first American in 25 years to go over the falls in a barrel. 10 years later, Trotter went over the falls again, becoming the second person to go over the falls twice and survive. It was also the second duo. Lori Martin joined Trotter in the barrel ride over the falls. They survived the fall, but their barrel became stuck at the bottom of the falls, requiring rescue. Tightrope walkers drew huge crowds to witness their exploits. Their wires ran across the gorge near the current Rainbow Bridge, not over the waterfall. Jean-Francois Blondin Gravelet was the first to cross Niagara Gorge on June 30th, 1859, and did so again 8 times that year.
He really set up shop.
His most difficult crossing... Yeah, he was killing it. His most difficult crossing occurred on August 14th, when he carried his manager, Harry Concord, on his back. His final crossing on September 8th, 1860, was witnessed by the Prince of Wales. Author Ginger Strand argues that these performances may have been the symbolic meanings at the time relating to slavery and abolition. Quick fun fact, according to river expert Wes Hill, 90% of the fish that go over the falls survive. Now, Rob, this is a big tourist maker. This thing makes a lot of money. Talk to us a little bit about the tourism of the falls.
So peak visitor traffic occurs in the summertime, when Niagara Falls is both a daytime and evening attraction. From the Canadian side, floodlights illuminate both sides of the falls for several hours after dark until midnight. The number of visitors in 2007 was expected to total 20 million, and by 2009, the annual rate was expected to top 28 million tourists. The oldest and best-known tourist attraction at Niagara Falls, of course, is the Maid of the Mist boat cruise, named for an alleged ancient Niagara Indian mythical character, which has carried passengers into the rapids immediately below the falls since 1846. Cruise boats operate from boat docks on both sides of the falls, with the Maid of the Mist operating from the American side, and Hornblower Cruises, originally Maid of the Mist until 2014, from the Canadian side. In 1996, Native American groups threatened to boycott the boat companies if they did not stop playing what was said was a fake story on their boats. The Maid of the Mist dropped the audio. Good.
Don't tell any bullshit.
Yeah. like we mentioned up top, Niagara Falls has been featured in some movies and some television. Jim, what do we got? What's the IMDb page for Niagara Falls say?
Sure. Already a huge tourist attraction and favorite spot for honeymooners, Niagara Falls visits rose sharply in 1953 after the release of Niagara, a movie starring Marilyn Monroe and Joseph Cotten. The 1956 animated short Niagara Fools featured Woody Woodpecker attempting to go over the falls in a barrel. The falls were a featured location in the major motion picture Superman 2 in 1980 and were the subject of a popular IMAX movie, Niagara: Miracles, Myths, and Magic. Illusionist David Copperfield performed a trick in which he appeared to travel over Horseshoe Falls in 1990. The falls, or more particularly the tourist-supported complex near the falls, was a setting of the short-lived Canadian-shot U.S. television show Wonder Falls in early 2004. The location footage of the falls was shot in October 2006 to portray World's End of the movie Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Professional kayaker Rafa Ortiz's preparation to paddle over the falls in a kayak was documented in 2015's film Chasing Niagara. Kevin McMahon's 1991 documentary The Falls explored the place of Niagara Falls in the world's collective imagination, covering both positive and negative aspects of the culture around the falls. And that is what Niagara Falls has contributed to media and television.
And Bruce Almighty.
Sure.
Well, I think we've crested over the falls, Jim. We've reached the bottom.
Sure.
We're at the end of the episode here. I think we did it. I think we talked a lot about we got to the bottom of the falls. Simply put. Which means if you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, rate, and review the show. Again, it helps us out a lot. 5 stars and some positive words is what allows you to also toss in a suggestion for a future episode topic. Jim, do you have anything you'd like to recommend to the Spiedie Freaks and Rattlesnake Pete's?
All right, let's say you're fucking crazy and you go over the falls, right? Like, let's say you're just like, I got to do it. You do it, and somehow you survive, and you are shaken up, but you're like, I'm alive. I need to celebrate. Well, here's how you do it. Go buy my album, Upstate Understandings. Gymsearch.bandcamp.com is a place to buy the physicals. It's all available on all digital streaming platforms. And also, go to gymsearchcomedy.com to go find my show dates. And by the way, those jokes came by me, and that album was produced by Rob Adler. So that's what I got for you. Rob, what do they need to do if they've already spent their money, but yet find some more?
I mean, let's just say you're about to take a spin on the Maid of the Mist, and you want to set the mood. You want to enjoy your time.
Sure.
Going to the Horseshoe Falls. You're gonna throw on my album called New York Sticky, available at brooklynfrequency.bandcamp.com. Go pick it up. It's a great instrumental album. You will love it. Speaking about things we love, we've got a great episode for our listeners next week. Jim, can you give a little hint as to what we're going to be talking about?
Oh, well, we're going to be talking to a man not of sight and sound, but of imagination.
It's true, yeah. It's going to be an interview episode.
I got for you.
It's going to be good. I'm excited for it. Jim, we've come to the end of the episode, and that means it's time for an up pun to close us out. Are you ready?
I am. Let's go.
Well, I'm going to be taking a ride over the falls, Jim, so seal me up into a barrel so I can float on out of here. Let's go.
Understanding Upstate is a podcast hosted by Jim Search and Rob Adler, edited by Rob Adler, and music from Regal Monk.